Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. We are presented by BetMGM, 14-game slate on a Tuesday, April 4th. Payoff Pitch comes your way every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday during the baseball season. 3 episodes a week. Yes, you heard that correctly. If you haven't heard already, 3 Payoff Pitch episodes per week. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. If you're, college basketball is over, getting antsy to bet some baseball. So please rate, review, subscribe. Today, myself, Brendan Glasheen, Sean Zerillo. You can find Zerillo's write-up, opening pitch, available at actionnetwork.com, Action Network app, full breakdown of games that he's targeting for today. And Anthony DeBundo joins the Tuesday show. Gents, let's dive on in. Zerillo, I'm interested in all your bets. That's not to say I'm not interested in other bets, but I'm interested because you've got the Red Sox Pirates. You were on the over yesterday, but you're targeting an under in a Red Sox game on Tuesday.
Yeah, all the Red Sox totals have flown over thus far, and they seem like a clear over team, really good offense, pitching a little sketchy, but for Tuesday's matchup, the wind is blowing in quite heavily at Fenway Park. It actually triggered an Action Lab system that we have for wind and weather, which dating back to 2002, when we have data going back to more than 1,700 bets across that criteria, it's generated roughly an 8% ROI, and a consistent $100 bettor would be up more than $15,000 betting this win system. Now, I'm not a system bettor. I'm betting based off of my projections and how the wind and weather influences my model and my adjustments. I put this total at around 8.4. I bet an under 9.5 last night and a first 5 under 5.5. Those have obviously come down to 4.5 and 9 respectively. Would not bet the first 5 under 4.5 at this point. It's roughly where I have it projected, but the under 9 for the full game, you could bet up to minus 114. As I said, I projected the total at 8.4. You do get the push probability on the key number of 9. So would not bet it below 9. Like it to 9 at minus 114 with a projection of 8.4. I think both starters relative to their expected metrics last year, I project them to each shave about a quarter of a run off of those metrics this year. So slight improvements for both Roansy Contreras, Nick Pivetta, but I like the under in Boston today after 4 straight overs have cashed easily.
Red Sox starting pitching has not been off to a good start this year. So we'll see if Nick Pivetta can figure that out for them. Bullpen was better yesterday. It was a lower scoring game in the back half. A lot of runs scored in the first 5 yesterday. So a first 5 over would have cashed for sure. And the full game over cashed early in the game last night at Fenway. DeBundo, what are you targeting for a best bet on this Tuesday slate?
I'm going to go with the Chicago Cubs. First 5 innings, minus 130. I think this is a huge starting pitcher mismatch with Hayden Wesneski, a pitcher that has received a lot of helium across the baseball community for spring training after he dominated. He was somebody I targeted in my 10 pitchers to bet on column in the lead up to opening day. He pitched to a 2.12 ERA, 22 strikeouts in 17 innings, and he was not really a strikeout guy last season and projects as much as one in the minor leagues, either pretty much below 1 strikeout per inning. But he throws he throws 2 different sliders, one of which is more of like a sweeper. And he really developed that pitch a lot in the second half of last season and was very difficult to hit in his time up. Now, the projection systems don't love him, but if you look at some of the underlying stuff, like Stuff Plus from Enos Saris's model, he's sitting at 104 based on last year's data, and some of the early data from this year has him up closer to 110, 114. So a huge jump for him with the different sliders. He's also able to throw the sweeper for a strike, which is really impressive given how hard of a pitch that seems to have been to command for much of the league. So he's a much better pitcher than Luis Cessa, who is, a high to mid to high 4 level ERA pitcher. I have the better offense. And so I'm going to take the first 5 on the Cubbies at minus 130.
Zerillo, I didn't see a discussion on this game in your article. Any thoughts here on this pick by Anthony?
No, I like Hayden too. I just made this line minus 131 for the first 5 and minus 118 for the full game. So it kind of aligned with my expectations. Also had the total at 9. Just no bet on Reds and Cubs for me. I bet the overs yesterday, I believe, because of the weather, but I believe the wind is flipped today.
Very good. Let's move on to find out if we are going to fade the public on this Tuesday. If you look at the Action Network app, strongly encourage you to subscribe to a pro account. You can get edges. And one of the things that we point out is where the money comes in, bet percentage, money percentage coming in. And one of the big sides today on the money line, the Tampa Bay Rays are getting 86% of the bets, 91% of the dollars as we come to you on Tuesday morning to take down the Washington Nationals, who are home. Nats are 1-3 on the season. The Tampa Bay Rays are undefeated, 4-0 start for the Rays. Classic Rays. They're just always in the mix, but very early, as we know. Zerillo, are we going to fade the public, and are the Rays going to lose their first game this year? Possibly.
I'll bet the Nats, if it gets to plus 160, it refuses to go there. It hasn't crossed plus 155. It keeps bouncing around between plus 140 and plus 155, and it's not crossing that threshold to get to plus 160. So I think the books know what they're doing. They're refusing to hang the number that they know the sharps are going to hit if they go just a touch higher on the Nationals. So I had difficulty getting the Rays here past minus 150 on a projection. So plus 160 or better, I would fire on the underdog, but not anything I'm rushing to do. I'm obviously very low on the Nationals team, not only in terms of a whole season outlook, but also on a game-to-game basis. I haven't bet them yet. So typically early in the year, I know the underdog, so I'm going to be on a lot or basically not touching it all. And it seems like the Nats are a team we're not going to have to bet a lot, fortunately.
Well, just wait until they play the Dodgers and the Padres.
Yeah. Wait till we get to the dog days of summer, and then the numbers become super inflated. You know, that is where we're going to have to eventually buy back a little bit. But when the numbers start to get really out of control, I'm fine buying at a very small edge, 1.5%, 2%. I'm not jumping in, not rushing into bet it.
I bury the lead. Dodgers, Padres, also teams in their own division, right? The Braves, possibly the Mets, Phillies.
Yeah,
teams that
absolutely.
probably, when they face those teams, they'll be an underdog in the 3 or 4 games or 2 games they face each other. DeBundo, the Rays are outscoring their opponents, Tigers and the Nats yesterday, 27-5 in their first 4 games. Are we willing to go to the other side?
I am not either. I have also not bet the Nationals this season. I think I actually had the Rays the last 2 days because I lay a little bit of juice on Springs and Rasmussen. I love the middle of this Rays rotation with Eflin, Rasmussen, and Springs. The way they're able to change pitch mixes and tweak guys and improve their stuff year over year is a continue to impressive. I don't even know the word for that, but it continues to impress me.
There it is.
As a bettor, yes. But Fleming is not that guy. I mean, Stuff Plus is like below 90. He's pretty much just a command guy. Was not a prospect whatsoever. Came from very low in the system and kind of just like a plug and play filler until Glasnow is back. So you're paying the same price today that you did yesterday with Drew Rasmussen on the mound, and so I kind of think it's a little bit inflated personally on Tampa, but I'm not betting Washington either. So this will be a pass. I'm more shocked that Zerillo has not yet bet the Nationals. That is the real surprise of the season.
I'm very happy about
it. He's proud of himself. But as he teased, just you wait.
I just do not want to.
I'm sure it's coming. Yeah.
I like to avoid it. Once we get to June, July, I know I'm going to have to bet these teams like the Nationals and the Royals at, plus 300 numbers. And as you said, Brendan, like 3-4 game series against the top teams in their division. If they can win one of the 3 games and we bet them each game, we come out ahead, but not a fun time when it gets to the middle of the summer and we're betting these plus 300s and basically just praying every day.
Stay tuned. I'm already looking at their schedule. Memorial Day weekend, they go to the Dodgers. They go to Atlanta early June. They go at Braves, at Astros, consecutive series in the month of June. What a start. And then middle of June, they go to San Diego, to Seattle. They have a trip at the end of June at San Diego for 3, at Seattle, at Philadelphia.
I love to be down 10 units in June before we're 2 months away from even betting on June baseball games.
I have a friend who covers the Nats, and I was like, well, at least you're going to see more of the country this year. This is what I told him the other day. So quite funny.
Let's move on to underdogs of the day. And I'm interested in these because there are some good starting pitchers on the mound today, including Sandy Alcantara, who is pitching for the Marlins, a favorite of Action Network's last year. Zerillo, there is an edge, though, you believe in the Twins, who face the Cy Young Award winner today.
Yeah, just from a pure projection standpoint, right? The Twins are better everywhere except for the starting pitching matchup. Better offense, better defense, base running, and a much better bullpen. And as we've talked about with other underdog matchups where you have the lesser starting pitcher already on this podcast this year, if the Twins can get the games to the bullpen and it's close, 1-run deficit, tie game, they have a huge advantage. So if you have that plus money ticket on the Twins, by the time this game turns over to the bullpens, we're partying. The problem is Sandy typically goes 7 innings, goes very deep into games. It's tough to get him out of there. I have major concerns about Sandy Alcantara this season. My greatest skill as a human being on this earth is pattern recognition. Across all the jobs I've ever held, across everything I've ever done, pattern recognition. That is my number one skill that stands out to me as something I'm good at. My brain says something is wrong with Sandy Alcantara. When I start seeing these aces get hit a little bit more, struggle to get the strikeouts they used to, and then particularly the command, Sandy in spring, in Major League spring, his strikeout walk numbers were fine. His WBC start and his first start of the 2023 season, he had more walks than strikeouts. And if you go through his game logs over the past few years, that happened twice. It happened on opening day of 2021, and it happened opening day 22, and it happened in a 2021 start at Coors Field. Other than that, he's had phenomenal strikeout and walk numbers in pretty much every start. I believe he only had even strikeout and walk numbers twice. So to have more walks than strikeouts 2 starts in a row for him is a massive red flag. So you need to see how he looks today. If it happens again, I'm willing to say something is wrong. But just taking this game from a normal projection standpoint, right? Leaving Sandy where he should be, and then trying to factor in where Kenta Maeda should be coming off of Tommy John surgery. That's also a difficult piece to this puzzle because we don't really know where Maeda is. He had bad numbers in spring. He was trending towards Cy Young level prior to the injury. He finished second in Cy Young voting there during the pandemic shortened 2020 season. So there's multiple projections out there on Maeda. They all have him around 4.1 in terms of an ERA number. That's a number 4 starter. I use something slightly more conservative because I'm a little bit sketched out by him. So even using a conservative projection for Maeda, an aggressive projection or normal projection for Alcantara, I still see value on the Twins. So I like the Twins here down to plus 123. I also like, I could get to this later, but we're just going to say it now. The first 5 over 3.5, I projected the total at 3.9. The first 5 over 3.5, you could bet to minus 115. Sketched out by both starters. I think there's early scoring, and I'm very worried about Sandy for this year, not only in terms of just his long-term health, career health, but our Marlins win total over. We have other things that correlate to the Marlins being competitive this year. So Sandy injury would certainly throw a big wrench into that.
Okay, something to keep in mind with the Sandy starts going forward. Debundo, an underdog that jumps out to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch on that too because we kind of workshopped that right before the show. The F5 over. Maeda, his location plus in the spring training was 89, which is not passable command for a starting pitcher at all. It's pretty terrible. And he had a lot of problems with walks. Some of the research does show that like command is the last thing to come back, even more so than velocity. So, you have to get the command back and then, go from there off of Tommy John. So I'm still worried about him. I'm like you said, Sean, we're both, kind of lower now, I think, in the market on Sandy, and the walks could play a big issue here. So for a total of 3.5 in a park that's not very friendly to hitting normally, I'm going to take the over as well with Sean on the F5 at 3.5.
If I could jump in quickly, I meant to ask Zorla, what is so you said you have, of all the jobs you've had, what's the second best job you've ever done? Well,
my second best skill, I think my ability to like very calmly aggregate information and then use it to make decision making based on like the information that I have available. So the way that I built my model, the way that I'm able to like take in tons of bits of information, filter out the noise, that all comes from law school. Taking up like just too much information and overloading your brain, and then figuring out, sifting the signal from the noise and figuring out, what is important and what's not. So that all sort of goes into the pattern recognition too, right? Because over time I'm able to identify what is important and what's not. But yeah, I think it's important as a human being to identify what you're good at and what you're not, and see if you can apply those skills to different jobs that you hold or different hobbies or interests that you have.
No, I thought you were going to say something like walking your dog or filtering out.
Oh, specifically,
filtering out your dog's noises when you do the podcast. And
I cleaned and repaired pools for an entire summer when I was in college. That was the weirdest job I've ever had.
you were good at it. You stayed.
Dedicated to my craft. I'm good at every job I've ever done, brother.
It's good. Wow. Now I can kind of see it. You cleaning out pools while betting the Nationals.
Yeah, a pool boy. It's a pool boy for summer.
Okay, sorry, DeBundo. I meant to ask that before you jumped in, but go ahead. Your favorite underdog for today? I couldn't help myself.
Yeah, my favorite job was a bartender in college, and my social skills were fun there. That being said, my favorite bet, I bartended in the city of Philadelphia, and I am betting the Philadelphia Phillies at plus 132. They got to win eventually, right? I'm just going to start martingaling. We're entering a state of panic very slowly. Not actually. I'm pretty much the same on the Phillies as I was a few days ago, except now that they have 4 losses. It's certainly not an ideal start, but really this comes down to Matt Strahm versus Domingo Germán. Germán is a pitcher that I'm consistently lower than the market on. Matt Strahm, I'm not sure what we're going to get from him in terms of length. The expectation is about 65 to 75 pitches. He did pitch in relief on Saturday. So they're putting him in a position to throw about 4 to 5 innings, turn it over to the bullpen. The bullpen's been really bad, but the Phillies bullpen, I think, is going to be highly volatile all season long. You're going to see stretches where they look like the best bullpen in baseball because the stuff is so good. And then you're going to see stretches where they look like they have in the first 4 games where they can't get anybody out and they're giving up a bunch of homers because the command, the locations are not very good on the bullpen. So the Phillies bullpen, I think, will be quite the roller coaster this season. That being said, Strahm, the reason I like him, you might think, oh, lefty against a righty heavy lineup. The Yankees projected to only have potentially 1 lefty in the entire lineup today. Well, I'm not that worried about that for the lefty Strahm because he's a reverse splits guy. He's been much better against righties than he has been against lefties. And that's the main reason that the Phillies went after him. And so I think that projects more favorably for the Phils in this matchup on Tuesday. Yeah. Career OPS is about 40, 50 points lower against right-handed batters than it is against left-handed batters. And the slug and strikeout to walk numbers are much more impressive against the righties.
Strahm was picked up in the offseason by the Philadelphia Phillies, as DeBundo said, was used out of the pen early. And Zerillo, we'll jump in now to your final bets for Tuesday. Despite, and DeBundo brought this up, he's had some home run issues in his career previously, and he's at Yankee Stadium tonight, but you'd lean under in this game.
Yeah, another game where the wind is blowing in. Didn't trigger the BetLab system for wind and weather, but I projected this total at 8 based off of a slight weather adjustment. So you can bet the under 8.5 to minus 110. Domingo Germán, another guy with an even worse home run issue, 1.6 home runs per 9 for his career. So both guys definitely have a slight tendency to give up home runs higher than league average for their careers. But as Anthony mentioned, the split for Strahm, I think, is going to be important against this Yankees lineup. And just the wind and the weather gets me total closer to 8 on the total. So under 8.5 to minus 110. No bet on the side for me, but I agree with the Phillies lean.
Okay, final bets for Tuesday. It's a 14 gamer. We're not touching on every game. Zerillo's got a couple more, then we'll go to DeBundo.
Yeah, my best of the rest. So we have some interesting options on the slate today. We're going to start with, we'll do a first 5, a full game, and then a total to close things out. All right, I believe we already did the total. So let's do a couple money lines. The Phillies first 5 to minus 130, lefty on lefty matchup. We will talk about the Cardinals and their splits against lefties for the entire season, but they were the number 1 team against lefties by a large margin last year, 131 WRC plus. I believe they were like 12% better than the next closest offense against left-handed pitching. I mean, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, 2 of the best lefty killers during their era of baseball. This Cardinals lineup is as deep as any in baseball, maybe deeper than any in baseball. And as we talked about before the podcast, if you were able to play a lineup that's 11 or 12 deep, or if you had to play a lineup that's 11 or 12 deep, the Cardinals would have an even bigger advantage over everybody else because they can platoon people. They have bats on the bench that should be starters. So Cardinals are super deep. I like their first 5 up here to minus 135. Dodd making his debut for the Braves. I think he's a nice pitcher. Steven Matz just has a higher floor. We know more of what he is. And the offensive splits, I think, are the big difference here. The Braves better against righties. The Cardinals much better against lefties. So I like the Cards up to minus 135 on the first 5 line. Braves much better bullpen, should even out after. And then I'm going against my Mets. First time I bet against the Mets. Or it's not true. I bet against the Mets with the Marlins once, but I'm going with the Brewers here at home against the Mets, who absolutely destroyed the Mets yesterday. The reason why I like this matchup is not really anything in particular, because I do give the Mets an advantage everywhere. Scherzer's slight starting pitching edge, bullpen's about the same, defense, offense, Mets slight edge, but it's still a wild card caliber team at home facing a pitcher who is ace level, but I don't think quite at the level where he was previously. Like Scherzer's ERA projections used to be in that 2.7, 2.65 range. Now he's at 2.9. So you are seeing this ever so slight performance dip towards, a number 2 type starter as he gets to the later stages of his career. He's still an ace. Don't get me wrong. Still projects in that ace tier, but he's starting to trend towards that number 2 tier. So not high on Wade Miley. The Mets smashed right-handed pitching last year, though, and they were getting a lefty today. So the splits kind of favor Milwaukee just a touch. Like them down to about plus 135, plus 130. Currently sitting plus 140. So decent bet on the Brewers, but again, no just particular advantage aside from splits.
And Bundo, what else you got? Your final bets for Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm going to take a small flyer on the Colorado Rockies plus 225. German Marquez away from home. This is something that Sean mentioned last week. He has much bigger than you'd expect splits away from home versus at home. A lot of it has to do with just his pitching. He throws a great curveball and a slider, and he gets a lot more break on both of those pitches when he's not at elevation. And so his stuff just plays up. Strikeout minus walk, considerably better. Keeps more balls in the yard. Of course, that's more standard course projection, but really just the peripherals that we look at. Strikeout minus walk rate is one of the most predictive metrics in baseball. And his is just better because his stuff plays. He gets more swings and misses. His zone contact rate at home last year, worst in baseball. On the road, more below average than terrible. So, significantly more missed bats for Marquez away from home. So I like the Rockies small at plus 225. Not a huge bet for me. About half what I would normally bet on a regular baseball side. But Arias is a guy that we're still not quite sure of. He looked shaky at the start on opening day against Arizona and then kind of settled into a nice groove after that. But yeah, the strikeouts were down for Arias as well. So a little worried about him as we go forward. And then this next bet is like the ultimate hold your nose, because I know Sean just talked about how good the Cardinals lineup is. And I agree. They're elite. They're going to dominate lefties. Dodd making his major league debut. 2 days ago, the Braves had Jared Schuster make his major league debut. He gave up 4 runs in the first inning, couldn't throw a strike. I like Dodd more than Schuster. The underlying metrics like him more. His prospect status is more clear, and his command is better than Schuster's, at least so far through spring training and based on minor league data. So I'm going to bet the under 10. Now, this was 9 earlier this morning, and a popular...
It was 8.5 last night.
It was 8.5 last night. It was 9 this morning. A popular bettor who has a big following gave out the over at 9. Now, if you want to follow him, that's fine. But just know that when, multiple thousand people follow an account and that account gives out the play, and then everybody runs to their sports books to bet it, the books are juicing the total the opposite way to the point where it becomes too overexposed on that over, and then there's probably value coming back on the other side against some of those plays. And I'm going to do that exactly here at 10 with the under on this game. You can find plus money out there. There's even some 10.5s popping. This just shouldn't be that high, especially once we get to the bullpens.
Yeah, and I was thinking, Chris, the perspective that I don't like the lefty matchup for the Braves against the Cardinals. Early scoring, maybe I'll target a live under 11.5. As we get to the bullpens, I agree it should tighten. So I'm probably going to target a live under 11.5 if I don't jump in pregame. But yeah, I agree that it's gotten a little bit inflated. I forgot to give out the Tigers. I don't know if we have time for one more game before we jump off, but I can't believe I forgot to give out the biggest dog I've given out all year. Yeah, Detroit Tigers plus 240. First half as well, down to plus 230. You could bet the first 5 spread, I think, is my preferred play, down to plus 130. Talk about the lefty splits with the Cardinals. The Tigers were historically bad against righties last season. You go back 21 years worth of data, there's 630 offensive seasons across those 21 years, right? The Tigers against righties last year ranked 625th out of the 630 offensive seasons against right-handed pitching. They were 24% below league average. I project them basically in the same range against righties this year, about 25% below league average. But they were an average offense against left-handed pitching, 100 WRC plus And guess what? I have them at 102 this year. So they're still going to maintain massive offensive splits, but they're so much better against lefties than they are against righties, this Tigers team. So Tiger is down to, I said, plus 220 full game money line, and first 5 spread down to plus 130. How I'd go about playing them. It's a big offensive splits advantage for them. On top of the fact that the Astros are also a better team against lefties, and they're facing a righty today. So the Tigers getting the better of the splits offensively and on the pitching side. Like them as a big dog. They pulled it off last night. It's funny because I'd already bet it when the game went to extras, knowing which relievers had been used and were likely to be used. And then I'm sitting there going, please win Astros, because there's that mental thing where you're like, you don't want the Tigers to win. And then you've already bet them to win the next day. They're not going to win 2 in a row, right? But that's all irrelevant. We bet these on a game-to-game basis. It's just one of those things where I was like actively rooting for the Astros, even though I had no action of the game.
Wow. So a fade of Framber Valdez. We're fading Alcantara today.
Yep. My guys. And I'm fading my Mets, Brendan. No, this is the most non-biased sports betting podcast you will find.
That's not true. I'm on the Phillies.
That's fuck you, Anthony.
So, question: were the Marlins lower against lefties last year than the Tigers against righties in that 630 T sample? Because I would bet they were.
I need to find where they rank historically.
64 WRC plus against lefties last season.
64?
Yes.
Yeah, I need to pull the data for the past 20 seasons for that, because that is horrendous. That's horrendous.
Valdez, Alcantara, Scherzer. I noticed we didn't touch Cleveland and Oakland with Bieber on the mound. Would we be fading Bieber too, or the A's at home?
I was leaning towards the Guardians actually in that matchup, if anything. I'm a little bit higher on Bieber this year. Anthony and I talked about it on the side. I'm a little bit higher on Bieber this year than I was headed into last year. I know we talked about like the velocity, the sticky stuff, why I had decreased him as a pitcher, but he actually changed his pitch mix ever so slightly last year. And I think he found something that's going to work for him at this velocity level. So I don't ever think he's getting back to that Cy Young level, but I do think instead of trending towards a number 3 guy, he's actually a pretty safe number 2 guy now. So a little bit higher on Bieber than I was last year.
Yeah, I mean, his strikeouts continue to be missing. Did not strike out many Mariners last week. I kind of, rely on the defense, got out of some jams, pitched well ultimately. But yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to lose a lot of money fading Bieber again. I just, we'll see how they price him.
Well, I was just gonna say we don't fade or hate on all aces, but DeBundo might want to fade Bieber. Not tonight, but going forward.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gents. That'll put a wrap on this Tuesday edition of Payoff Pitch. Enjoy yourselves tonight. 14-game slate. As a reminder, we are here every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. So the next you hear from us is on Friday. Don't forget you can follow Zerillo and DeBundo individually in the Action app. If, for example, when they talk about a total on a game and they want to get in on a total live, you might find them in the app. So check them out once the games start as well. They'll have all of their plays available to you. Also check out Zerillo's article, opening pitch, available, actionnetwork.com, Action Network app. For Sean Zerillo, Anthony DeBundo, Brendan Glasheen, thanks to David behind the scenes, our audio producer today. We'll see you back here Friday morning. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast, presented by BetMGM.